Hi, this is Strategic Use of Information Resources. I'm David Green. This is tied to Chapter 2 of Pearlson and Saunders, Managing and Using Information Systems, a Strategic Approach. In this discussion, we will list the identifying factors of the areas of information usage over time. We will know what makes an information resource valuable. We will explain how information resources are used strategically in the context of the 5 forces model. You will be able to understand how information resources can be used to alter the value chain, and you will be able to explain the importance of strategic alliances and know the risks of information resources. There is a few examples in your reading assignment. You were presented with a case study from Zara. Zara is a Spanish retail clothing manufacturer. They have a simple business model that helps them gain a strategic advantage among their customers, among their competitors. Their system links demand to manufacturing and manufacturing to their distribution systems. Just think of this comparison. Customers visit Zara stores up to 17 times per year to check on new items that may have arrived. The industry average, I believe, is around 4 times per year for customers. So they have a loyalty among their customers. They have a very satisfied customer base. So they have a limited number of products. Customers buy them fairly quickly, so the products don't stay on the shelf very long. And the reason why we're presented with a case study for Zara is to see why do they gain a competitive advantage in the industry. And one of the reasons is their alignment of their IT or IS strategy with its business strategy. For example, the Zara point of sale system, the POS system, sends daily updates to the headquarters. Managers report to designers the popularity of specific items and what's not popular. So they're able to get real-time feedback on a daily basis of what's popular. And that helps them track trends. It helps them track and plan for uh, future production. So there's a process in which new designs can be ordered twice a week. So there's a very short lead time that is actually necessary before a new design ends up hitting the store shelf. So they're able to be very flexible or agile in responding to customer needs. Now we're going to talk about the evolution of information resources, or the eras of information resources. So over the decades, there's been a change, and sometimes we go back and forth between what we consider an efficiency model versus a value creation model when referring to information resources. So how do we use information resources to gain a competitive advantage? So let's take a look at a table. This should have also been included in your reading assignment. This shows from the 1960s through the 2000s some of the eras of information usage among different categories. So what was the role of IT? So we went from efficiency automating of existing paper-based processes in the 60s. Well, some companies are still doing that to this day, or trying to do that. Through solving problems, creating opportunities, through increasing individual and group effectiveness and personal productivity, and then actually transforming an industry or and the organization within the industry through the 90s. Through 2000, IT was used for value creation, so creating partnerships with other companies. So those are So you see some of the changes over time, and we realize that there are some companies that are still stuck uh, and haven't really begun moving past that efficiency stage and to look at value creation. But that's been the typical view. And so you can also look at it from others' perspectives in terms of how do new IT projects, how are they justified? Well, now we say they add value to the company. It's more, they help us not only compete, but they can help drive additional revenue, create new business models. It's not just a return on investment. It's not just internal increases of efficiency. Targets of systems, like that's tied to what we just discussed. In the 60s, we were targeting the organization and how the organization runs. We've been moved through management to business processes and consider business processes ecosystem, so as a group. And we've moved beyond business processes to the customer and supplier ecosystem, so which is closely tied to supply chain management within an organization and outside of an organization. So we've moved beyond the physical boundaries of the firm in terms of our systems. So we go on down through information model. We've moved from application specifics. So we had separate applications that were not talking to each other. And now we're moving to business-driven and knowledge-driven models. So we're trying to add knowledge, reduce the impact in the loss of employees over time, and the knowledge that they have by helping or trying to save some of that knowledge. You can see the changes in the dominant technology went from mainframe-based systems to what we called mini or microcomputers, to a client-server system that was distributed intelligence, where we were working off specific servers. We were able to connect and share resources to the internet of ubiquitous computing. The basis of value moved from scarcity to now what is plenitude in terms of technology, information, and data. So much so that we have so much data we don't know what to do with it, and we don't have the expertise among our employees, among ourselves, to be able to process, take it in, and make useful decisions based on it. Now let's discuss information resources as strategic tools. So let's discuss the definition of information resources. Information resources are the technology, the data, the people, and processes available to perform business processes and tasks. So data, technology, people, and processes. So it's more than just the technology. It's the data, it's the people, it is the process that is involved. So we'll talk a lot about business processes in this class. And business processes can be looked at from a very micro, like under a microscope perspective, all the way up to a very large business process, a manufacturing process versus micro part of the manufacturing process might be purchasing a very specific raw material that goes into manufacturing. So there are different levels when you're talking about business processes, whether it's a micro or macro view. So information resources can either be assets or capabilities, and according to our definition. So when we're referring to IT assets, and we'll refer to this quite a bit, think of an IT asset. It doesn't have to be tangible. It's anything tangible or intangible that can be used by a firm in its processes for creating, producing, and or offering its products. So a very tangible example is, well, there's some parts that are intangible, but IT infrastructure. So what kind of network, hardware, servers, um, network, internet backbone being used to support the organization's information technologies. So that alone encompasses, we consider the IT infrastructure. So that's more than just one thing. So that would be an IT asset. IT capability is something that is learned or developed over time in order for the firm to create, produce, or offer its products. So think of it as it's something that's learned over time. So it's something that's learned, that's developed. It's something necessarily we can't really purchase it and then have that necessarily have that capability unless that purchasing involves people. So IT assets were I already mentioned IS or IT infrastructure, the data technology people processes, also information repositories, the data knowledge that's captured that we try to organize by the firm. So some of the things, so we're trying to collect this data, collect the knowledge, collect what people know about and how they do their jobs well, so that we can improve efficiencies in organizations. So there could be knowledge sharing, so among best practices in the organization. And then we also have Web 2.0. We hear a lot about that. Just some examples: software as a service, where it can definitely be an IT asset, even though it's not physically hosted within the boundaries of the organization. So, uh, software as a service examples would be Google Apps, Google Docs. So it's hosted, and we may use the Office suite for Google Docs. Microsoft actually has Office 365, which is also a software as a service product that allows you to use Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, at least a limited version of them, via a browser or without having to install the software on your computer. Managers can uh, access or provide customers with information that's external to the firm. So it's not necessarily within the boundaries of the firm, as I said before. So we have, we can also utilize networks of people. So it can be an internal or an external social network. LinkedIn is very popular, especially for talent management, recruiting. And some companies also promote the use of Facebook within the organization as well, believe it or not. You may be at one of them. If you're at one of these organizations that do promote social networking within the organization, I encourage you to take some time to discuss it. You're welcome to post a comment about it on one of the discussion forums. IT capabilities, we're talking about technical skills, management skills for IT management, and relationship skills. So these are things, technical skills. How do we design, develop, and implement information systems? So it may be developing skills. It could be software development, programming, configuration skills. IT management, it may be project management, budgeting, vendor selection, personnel selection, assigning the right people to the right projects. Also, relationship skills. It could be internal or externally focused. So developing competency within and without the organization, developing the relationships that are necessary to get the projects completed and to make sure they're successful. And that's one that I think the management and even especially the relationship skills that can be a tough one for someone with a typical IT background. Um, Without jumping to too many conclusions or saying everyone in IT is more introverted, it is more common that someone the technology background are more typically or more likely, I would say, to be uh, introverted and less outgoing. So that's why if you are in IT, there's a lot of room for excelling in management if you have the willingness to learn to hone your management skills and develop relationship and communication skills, there can be lots of opportunities for you. So you see this is a grid with information resources. It provides additional examples that many of which we just discussed. So again, the categories of information resources, we call them IT assets and IT capabilities. So what are some of the advantages of information resources? So general managers evaluating an information resource, they want to decide, will this provide us a competitive advantage or not? Here are some questions to ask when considering whether or not this resource will provide us with a competitive advantage. Would hiring this person, would creating a new department, would purchasing a new ERP software create a competitive advantage? So here are some questions that are very important. What makes the information resource valuable? Who appropriates the value created by the information resource? Is the information resource equally distributed across firms? So does everyone have access to the same resource? Does everyone have ability to buy the software? Is everyone located by a university that has a large IT or networking or MIS or computer science or software engineering program, and they're able to use that as an information resource in potentially a competitive advantage? So that's one example. So all firms don't have equal access to that. Um, let's see, is the information resource highly mobile? Is it mobile or is it static? So that's really tied to the previous, how easily it would be for others to access it or to acquire it themselves. How quickly does the information resource become obsolete? Because that's important. So we implement it, but then we're going to have to upgrade to a new system or to a new, we hire someone with certain skills, but 2 years from now we're not going to need those skills. So we either have to have plans for retraining, etc. So how can information resources be used strategically? Strategically, we're thinking about our competitive environment. We've discussed the information systems triangle and talking about our ISIT strategy versus our organizational strategy and our business strategy. So within the firm, outside the firm, and then our IT strategy. We should not tolerate error in this front. So when we're and we shouldn't tolerate it because the competitive environment doesn't tolerate error when we're looking at what our strategy should be. So if we make a mistake, our competitors are going to benefit from it, whether we intended to make the mistake or not. So managers should take a multiple view, and when we say from a multiple view, consider different strategic frameworks to help understand your competitive landscape. And these are going to be a few of them. These are not the only ones. I mean, there are authors writing books all the time, offering their former CEOs of companies offering their views of being a leader and leading an organization to success. So we're going to take a look at Porter's 5 competitive forces model, Porter's value chain, and the resource-based view of the firm. And these are 3 of the most famous strategic frameworks that you will probably ever hear of. So these are very vital to your program, your graduate studies program, whatever you're in. If you're in business, you're in public administration. These are important. Strategic frameworks. So we're going to start by looking at Porter's competitive forces model. And there have been many additions to this since it was initially created. But Michael Porter is a faculty member at Harvard Business School. He created this quite a while ago. But Porter's 5 forces model show that the major forces that shape the competitive environment of the firm include the following. And we have, I like the diagram a little bit better. It shows this is the competitive forces model. So the 5 forces. So first, the potential threat of new entrants, the bargaining power of buyers, the threat of substitute products, the bargaining power of our suppliers, and our industry competitors, and whether or not they're able to be introduced, if cost effectiveness, do they have access to the market, are they able to differentiate their product or service. So these are some of the things that allow you to look at the competitive forces in a market. So, I'm not going to go into too much detail with each of these, but for example, the threat of new entrants to the market. So retail clothing is a competitive market. There are a lot of companies that are competing there. But let's take a look at. Well, let's go back. We'll talk about it generally, and then we'll look at the example of Zara and how IT influences the force. The strategic for potential threat of new entrants, we're looking at how easy can new firms enter the market. There might be regulatory requirements that make it very difficult for new firms. I mean, how easy would it be for us to compete in the as a new power company, as a new nuclear energy generation company? So there are some organizations that are very difficult to enter. And sometimes it's due to regulation, sometimes it's due to the initial investment, the initial capital required to start the company. So if we wanted to start a new automobile manufacturing company, so we wanted to compete with the likes of Toyota or Ford. So there's a tough to enter those markets. I mean, we do have some new electric car companies that are entering the market, but it's definitely a challenge. So number 2, bargaining power of buyers. So what is their ability to actually buy our product? How many options do they have available out there? What are the switching costs for our buyers? So switching cost and then differentiation. How different is our product than others? So switching costs, I mean, you think of, I think we have some very good examples related to mobile devices and operating systems. I mean, the more time we have an iPhone, and after having an iPod, we have iOS apps that can't be used on Android system, and we've already bought those apps and those games. I bought Angry Birds Space on one device, and I can't use it on the other device, and I bought 200 more apps on the device. So I spent significant investment. So the switching cost would be a lot. So I'm not just losing the phone and my experience in using the interface. I'm also losing my investment in the applications that I've purchased over time. So bargaining power of buyers, that's an important competitive force. So if the switching costs are very low for our customers, and the buyer's selection is high, so they have a lot of alternatives, then that's probably not a good thing. We're going to have to look at how we can compete in that market. So this really tells us how we can compete, or if we even want to compete in a specific market. Threat of let's go to number 3, bargaining power of suppliers. So suppliers, we're looking at how powerful they are. How many are there? So what's the supplier selection? How many if we make, let's say we bottle water, and so we have to so we have to get the water. So let's say we have our own we have our own resource for water. So we're actually pulling it from the uh, municipal water system. But we have to buy bottles. So how many suppliers will actually create bottles? So we either can do it ourselves, which we don't have the expertise to do, and it's not cost effective for us to do. Depending on the number of suppliers, I would imagine there are quite a few uh, suppliers for plastic bottles. But if there aren't, then they have more power. So the fewer competitors, the fewer suppliers that are available for whatever product, and it might be a raw material. I mean, if there's only one location in the world where you can buy the minerals to create lithium-ion batteries, then they have they have a lot of power, and they can set the price. So they they have a lot of power. So take a look at the suppliers and what's needed. I mean, in that case, you would probably look for alternative ways, or try to continue while you're buying it from the supplier. Look for alternative ways or changes in your product. Now let's move on to number 4, the threat of substitute products. So are there products that aren't like us, but that are substitutes, that are potential substitutes um, for ours? So it might be, if it's bottled water, it might be something that's different. It might be orange juice, so it can be similar, but it's something different. So if it's a substitute product, it's another product or service that can it's not exactly the same, but can allow you can fill in the need for your product. So well, let's say bottled water, like another idea. Let's say a company comes out with a mobile water fountains that make it very affordable. For $5 a month, you can have um, a mobile water fountain in your office, in your bedroom, very inexpensive. So that might be another example of a substitute product that's not exactly like our product, but it would replace our product or potentially replaces our product. And number 5, we're looking for industry competitors. So what are the competitors doing? And what is the strategy? Which we'll take a look at this, or we actually look at this. So what's their competitor strategy? Where they take a cost approach, or did they move? Are they move to differentiate their product? How are they differentiating their product? So that's Porter's 5 competitive forces model. It's a very brief overview. I mean, there are lots of videos and additional reading you can find online related to Porter's competitive forces model. But this really helps you understand the competitive environment. This is not the only forces. Others have added on to this model, but this is the place to start to make sure you understand a competitive environment. This is going back to this for those of you that will be taking a capstone course in the strategic management. This is an important model that you'll definitely come back to. So make note of that. Study this model, competitive forces model. And this is a table that actually applies information technology and its influence on competitive forces. Because as we looked at competitive forces, it's not information technology necessarily, but information technology can influence the ability of new entrants to the markets. Or so if we're already in the market, we want there to be um, we want it to be very difficult for other new companies to enter the market. We don't want it to be really easy. We would prefer that we have fewer competitors. So that's I can't think of an example where that would not be the case. But new entrants to the market. So if you think about the internet and the impact of the internet over time, it allowed lots of people to compete with lots of small businesses to compete in a lot of ways with retail stores by selling products and services online because they now have the platform and the flexibility, and they don't have to have the capital investments in terms of um, a retail floor space, a brick and mortar floor space. So that's changed over time. It's been interesting to watch how that's happened. But when you look at an existing retail company like Zara, they're actually able to use it to their benefit. So uh, Zara's IT supports their designers, their market specialists, their production managers, their production planners. So it's unlikely that um, so this is a capability that Zara has developed over time in this relationship between IT and their employees, their employee groups. So that would be difficult for new entrants to come in and replicate that immediately. So that would be a good thing. So that's something we were looking for. We don't want our competitors to be able to replicate it unless we're able to license it to them. Unless we're able to license something and make money off of it, which is one of the reasons why companies patent things. The bargaining power of buyers. So with all the new products, and the loyal customer base and low inventory, so that's an advantage for Zara. So the low inventory, high inventory is always a challenge for retail. So if you look at the low inventory, because there's low inventory, the regular customers, which we said there was a very loyal customer base for Zara's. They buy products when they see them because they're not likely to be gone. They are likely to be gone. So so that's one of the ways to differentiate. So the product's not always going to be there. So you can't expect it to always be there. So and customers have learned that. So you've got to get it right when you see it if you really want it. So that really gives the power to Zara's actually. So they have so that's a good thing. So when your customers have more bargaining power, then you have to make more concessions along the way. Same with bargaining power of suppliers. Computer controlled cutting machines cut up to 100 layers at a time, or 1,000 layers at a time. Wow. So when you take a look at their manufacturing of their clothing, the suppliers' work is fairly automated, and many suppliers can do the sewing. So you got the pool of suppliers that Zara has expanded. So if they only had one supplier that was able to do this, then the suppliers would have the power. Since they're able to expand it, and they've been able to expand it and choose between sewing companies, especially if they don't um, meet their quality control standards, then that's better for Zara's because they're not stuck with the company if a problem comes about. Threat of substitute products. So Zara's competitors have marketed more durable clothing lines. Zara's has found that their customers prefer trendier, low-cost fashion, so it's not as durable. So it's more throwaway. So I mean that's a whole other issue altogether. But you can see they said they're willing to give their customers more affordable clothing that they may not be able to wear as many times over the life of the clothing, but it's trendy, it's fashionable. So um, one of Zara's top competitors is H&M, which I don't know too much about the business model for H&M, but they're also very very similar in terms of the types of in terms of their market that they're going after. So they have efficient manufacturing and distribution operations. And Zara's does most of this with virtually no advertising in terms of having, and they do this, and they have the highest sales per square foot of any of its competitors, of any square foot, highest sales per square foot of floor space. So they that's pretty impressive with not much advertising. So it's mostly word of mouth. And again, and you see with the competitors, so Zara's clothes are expected to last for about 10 wears. So it gives them a low cost ability to try trendy clothing that they know you've got to know that you're not going to be able to wear it 5 years from now.